Hi everyone, this is Amy from the Helms Academy, and today we'll be talking about the difference between fragments and complete sentences. So a few key terms to get us started. First of all, a complete sentence contains what's called a subject and a predicate. So a subject is who or what is the sentence about, or who or what is doing the action in this sentence. But the predicate is the verb, which is the action or the state itself, and then everything that follows that. So we need both parts of those, and they can look very different depending on the context, but we have to have both a subject and predicate and to be able to complete a sentence. And many people like to remember this as having a subject and verb. That's a simplified way of remembering it, but if it helps you keep some of these key points intact, that's also a good thing to think about. A fragment then is the opposite of this. It's an incomplete sentence. So it is some words, but they don't ultimately convey a complete sentence in its meaning. So let's look at some examples of that. When we talk about complete sentences, there are a number of different structures that we can use, and sometimes they are shorter and sometimes they're longer. So for example, a simple sentence would have just one subject and one verb. So this says, I went to the store. So our subject here is I, and then what did I do? I went to the store. So went is our verb and to the store is the other part of the predicate with the verb. Now, if I wanted to make my sentences more interesting, more diverse, I could do something like a compound sentence and say, I went to the store and my brother cleaned the house. So here we actually have two subjects and verbs. I went and my brother cleaned. And we connect those two complete thoughts there with the word and. Some other compound sentences might use words like for, but, nor, so, or yet. For a complex sentence, we're adding something called a dependent clause to something called an independent clause. So our simple sentence, I went to the store, that's an independent statement all by itself. However, if I add while I went to the store, that word while makes it dependent. It now needs more information to make sense. It can't make sense all on its own. So I would say, while I went to the store, my brother cleaned the house. And that would help me see the two things that are happening at the same time. There are a number of other words there called subordinating conjunctions that can help you identify phrases that are dependent. Our last type is called a compound complex sentence. And this one says, while I went to the store, my brother cleaned the house, and my sister mowed the lawn. So we have parts of that complex sentence with the while, we have parts of the compound sentence with the and we could put all those together to make one very interesting sentence. Now, some examples for fragments. Oftentimes when we see fragments, it's for different reasons, but here are some of the major ones. A missing subject or verb, like if I said, cleaned the house while you were gone. When we're speaking, that makes sense because it would imply that I cleaned the house while you were gone. But in writing, we don't have that same amount of information from the context. And so we really need to look at this and figure out what would make sense here. Like what subject could we add? So same thing there with the dependent clause, during the recital at my school. Well, what happened during the recital at my school? Right? There's no verb or predicate here. And also that word during is one of those subordinating conjunctions, which means this information is dependent on something else. Perhaps we could say, during the recital at my school, the fire alarm went off. That tells us more about the situation. It makes it a complete thought. The last one is a descriptive phrase. So sometimes we'll include these descriptive phrases out of context, and they're actually fragments on their own. They need to be part of something bigger in a complete thought. So here it says graduating with a degree in science. So we would need more information there, right? My cousin just finished college, graduating with a degree in science. That would make sense. Or my bike, which is stored in the garage. Well, we could say my bike is stored in the garage. That would be a complete thought. But when we add that word which, it's becoming more of a descriptor than the predicate. So this tells us more about the bike, but then we would need to finish the sentence. We could say is really nice or is broken at the end to make it complete and give it that verb and predicate. So Here are a couple more examples. The following two sentences are missing a subject or verb. So how would we correct them? Well, instead of saying going to the store, we could say I'm going to the store. Instead of saying you ready, we could add the verb are you ready. Those are simple changes, but these are things that we use often in our speaking voices that we will need to correct in writing. Now, I want to make a note that commands are complete sentences. So you might see things that say run ahead of me or go faster. That's implied that the subject is you. This is a command being given to someone else. So we don't have to say you run ahead of me and you go faster. These mandates or commands are okay on their own. They are complete thoughts. So our next one is our series of dependent clauses. So here we go. Our first one says, while our neighbors were out of town for the weekend, and you can kind of feel that hanging there, right? You wonder, well, what else? What other information is there here? That's not complete on its own. Now, again, if we were to take out the word while, our neighbors were out of town for the weekend. That's a complete thought. But while changes everything. And same in our second sentence where it says, even though I hate the taste of peanut butter, well, we're waiting to see what happens. I hate the taste of peanut butter, that would be a complete thought. But even though, that is not, that makes it dependent. So let's see how we could fix these. While our neighbors were out of town for the weekend, comma, we watered their plants. So there we have that complete independent thought, we watered their plants. And when we attach it to the old dependent clause, together they make a complete thought. Our other one says, I will eat this cookie she gave me, even though I hate the taste of peanut butter. So we still include that original phrase there with even though I hate the taste of peanut butter, but we add an independent thought, I will eat this cookie. Our next section is about descriptive phrases. So here we have my sister who loves going hiking in the fall, and the trees that blossom with flowers in the spring and have bright leaves in the fall. Now, the words who and that, those are telling us that we're getting more descriptions here than and not an actual predicate to our sentences. So here, we have a couple ways to fix these. We could change this to, my sister loves going hiking in the fall, and just take out the word who. That would be a complete thought. That's a simple sentence. We could also, though, add some more to this. We could say, my sister, who loves going hiking in the fall, is leaving today for a trip. Great. We've added on that predicate, which is leaving today for a trip, to go with our subject, my sister, and everything that's in between those commas is just extra description about my sister. The other one, we could say, the trees blossom with flowers in the spring and have bright leaves in the fall. So again, if we take out the word that makes sense in that sentence. We can keep the sentence without the word that, and we would say the trees blossom with flowers in the spring, and trees blossom would be our subject-verb combination. Now, we could also leave the word that in. So we could say the trees that blossom with flowers in the spring and have bright leaves in the fall are my favorite. So everything that's underlined, beginning with that really until fall, is description for the trees. It's not actually a predicate in itself because the word that sets it off. So just be aware of some of these descriptive phrases and how you might see them. This is a common thing to find on the GED and HiSET and TASC tests when they're asking you about grammar. Thank you so much for watching today, and don't forget to check out all of our other videos on our channel. You can also subscribe for the latest updates. The Helms Academy is also on Instagram and on Facebook, and you can find us at helmsacademy.org.